Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show and welcome to part 2 of my discussion with MJ of the Nerd Goggles podcast regarding Birds of Prey, issues 56 through 61. This part 2 episode features our continued discussion with issues 58 through 61. So if you want to listen to the first part of this discussion, you need to go back and listen to The Birds of Prey of Like Minds Part 1. So please go back and listen to that episode first. If this is the first time you're hearing me talk about Birds of Prey with MJ. And so we'll just get right to it. Shall we move on to issue 58?
Yeah.
Okay, so the cover has Barbara on the floor throwing what looks like a batarang, with in the background on her screens it's "Who is Batman?" which will play into this particular story. So synopsis is, we learn a bit of Canary's backstory, her martial arts training specifically, as she attempts to free herself, but Fisher comes in to feed her. Fisher then tells her that he cannot help her because Savant has his family held hostage. We also get Savant's origin story as a mass vigilante in Gotham before he was ordered to give it up by Batman on his first night out. It makes me wonder how many times Batman has done that. Savant remarks how he did not like the way Batman spoke to him, which is why he engineered this blackmail session to force Oracle to tell him Batman's identity. Savant confronts Canary, demanding to know who Oracle is, but Fisher interrupts and sneaks Canary a transmitter. Canary is able to remove all the men from the room by declaring her need for feminine products, and then she is able to not only free herself, but subdue Savant. Oracle is able to trace Canary's location. Huntress quickly takes down Creote. Well, maybe not so quickly, but that's what I put in my notes. But both women's victories are seemingly short-lived as the issue ends.
So I have this one as my favorite cover.
Oh yeah?
Of the bunch, yeah. I don't know why. I think I just liked it just looked really dynamic, and just some of the colors and just like Bab's pose and all that kind of stuff. I just like the way it worked.
Yeah, I definitely like the colors of it. I think it's one of the more dynamic ones that we have. Even especially considering the last cover, which was Huntress kind of breaking through something, and no, she's not throwing something, but she's kicking through. So, yeah, Bendis is certainly doing a good job at depicting or displaying some sort of menace and action at the same time on the covers.
Okay, so let's see.
Did you know about this past of Black Canaries? And I don't even know if this is actually canon or if it's something that Simone and Bendis introduced as backstory for Black Canary.
I don't think I am very familiar with Canary's backstory. I just kind of seen her pop up here and there on other things. So this, again, like Birds of Prey is probably the most that I've seen her in anything, as far as like where she was more of a lead as opposed to just somebody coming in and doing something and then just kind of leaving. Mm-hmm. So I don't know too much. I don't know too much about her. I don't know too much of her background.
Yeah, this particular thing where she's being trained by a martial arts master, that was new to me. Mm-hmm. But again, I honestly don't know all that much about Black Canary. She's one of those characters that while she's been around forever, they constantly seem to think they need to redo her, retool the character and change her up and make her all these different things. So,
and I feel like I read, did she get her own book during the New 52 or no?
No, I don't think so. I think she was part of the Birds of Prey New 52 comic. I'm pretty sure she was. I don't think she. Boy, now that you say that though, I
can't remember because I feel like that I read some stuff, but I can't remember because I picked up a lot of stuff in the beginning of that, but I didn't stay with everything. But I can't remember now. Trying to think. I don't have too many notes for this because this was one of those middle issues where just now things are kind of slowly coming into to build up to the climax, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of just moves along. This was where I thought there was a continuity issue because I didn't see she was wearing gloves in the final scene of the last issue, right? And then this issue she didn't have gloves. And so that first panel I'm like, where did her gloves go? And then when I got to the next page, oh, that's what happened to them. I was like, okay. They had me on that one.
But that's one of the things I like about the way that they're telling the story is that they throw out the visual, and if you catch it or not, it doesn't. I mean, they're not being blatant about what's going on. You know, they just introduce the idea and then they'll comment on it. You know, like on the next page. But yeah, it's like I didn't even notice that her gloves were off when I first read this.
Yeah, that was and it was funny because that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, wait a minute, I think she had gloves on. So I went back to the issue and I'm like, she did have gloves on. I was like, how did they let that one slip by? So it was funny when I went to the next page and I read it and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, you explain that away.
Well, and what's really funny about that whole thing regarding her hands and her gloves is that not only did I miss it the first time, at least on that first panel, the characters in the story totally ignore it. They totally didn't even see it. And, given how much of a genius that we've been shown or told Savant is, how did he not realize this?
That's funny. Maybe he thought one of the other guys took him off when he wasn't there.
That could be. Yeah, sure.
But this was another, I think, another good description of like what she was going to do, and with the whole breaking her thumbs, and we've seen that in movies a lot too, and that's one of those things that I'm always cringing, and I'm like, oh, break your thumb, and I just can't even imagine, having to do that in real life. That when you just read it, I'm just like, oh yeah,
yeah.
And I could feel it, so I was just like, I could feel that build of that, coming.
Well, and that started last issue at the very last panel or very last page of last issue. She tells us she's going to do this. This is her plan. And then we get a little bit more her struggling. She's about ready to do it. And of course, down the road she does, of course. But yeah, it's exactly that. It's like watching a horror movie almost, where you know something's going to happen and they're building up to it, and then when it finally, even though it finally happens and you still jump because it's being developed for you, it's being pushed on you. So,
and I think I kind of like that. I kind of like that they didn't like rush into it.
Yeah.
So they just keep like bringing it up, and you're like, oh, it's gonna happen. Oh no, okay, no, it didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen. It's kind of kept you on your toes. Like I kind of like that. I like that. Again, I keep repeating that there's just a lot of the slow build of things happening here, and I like that because that's what keeps me intrigued. And same thing with having those kind of cliffhangery endings. That was one of the things, just to give like an example of one of the reasons what I used to like about Grey's Anatomy when I used to watch it. It was like, every episode was like a season finale, and I would come back for the next, and that's how I feel like with these issues right here. It's like every issue is like a season finale, and you're waiting for the next one, and I think that's again, it's a good creative team going on there.
Yeah. Well, and just that whole talking about it, expecting it to happen. It's that tension thing that you were talking about earlier. They have that. They're building up the tension, then they relieve the tension. They build it, and they keep going back and forth. Yeah, very well done. And on top of that, she's starting to cut, using her fingernails to cut into her hand to make it bleed, to help lubricate the cuffs, the handcuffs, so she can slip her hand out more easily.
I think that was pretty good. Yeah, I like that description too. So you can lose skin as you're trying to slip it out, like gross.
I will say I did find that kind of weird that she's concerned about losing skin when she's going to break her thumb and she's lacerating herself. But whatever.
There's just like a lot of weird like I don't know, like duality of emotions, I guess. Everybody's, the same thing with like with Savant. And there's like he says like these weird things, but then he's like then he makes sense, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes then he has like then he says something you're like, what the heck? And then is like then he makes sense. So it's kind of funny. I laughed a lot, especially when I was like writing my notes, and then I move on, and then I would put I put LOL a lot because so I was like, oh okay, oh that was funny.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, because we're not there yet. So go ahead.
Speaking of Savant, there a few pages later after the beginning of this, he's just sitting there lounging in the chair with Kriot standing by him. He says, "I met the Batman last night. It was 4 years ago, Savant. Have you taken your medication today? I remember it. I forget nothing." And that's where we get the whole origin story where there was an arsonist in Gotham, and he decided, this is Gotham. I might as well just go out or put on a mask and go out and stop the arsonist, which he apparently does, but that's where we got the scene, 2 issues ago now? I forget which issue it appeared in now, but Batman confronts him and says, I'm not going to tolerate you here. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because Batman was focused on saving the people in the burning building, and Savant was just concerned about the beatdown on the bad guys.
Catching the bad guys, yeah.
But he specifically, Savant specifically talks about, you get a nice encapsulation of kind of the psychotic nature of the character. He was right. I realized later, I really didn't care if those people lived or died. Who knew wearing a cape had such stringent job requirements? And that's one of those LOL moments for me too. It's like, yeah, this guy is a total nut job, but he's funny.
I didn't write anything about the origin story only because I was caught up with the fact I thought it was a good way to sneak in a Batman story. If you don't get a chance to write Batman, sneak it into your other book and write your own mini Batman story.
Well, and that brings me back to the note I had about this issue. I think it actually refers to something that happens later, but I love how there's never a thought given to asking Batman for help. Mm-hmm. In this entire story, no character says, let's call Batman into this, because they don't need to. They're taking care of it. And it doesn't appear to be out of pride. It's just that they have the confidence to deal with it themselves. They don't need some guy coming in and saving them. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. It's, Batman he's an afterthought. He's a flashback. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
I did enjoy that too. And speaking of funny scenes, this whole thing with the Huntress at the
oh man,
this guy, I couldn't believe it afterwards that she took the date, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, after all that, I was like, this is so weird.
This guy,
it just made me laugh.
Yeah, it is. I agree, it's funny, but man, all I wanted to do was reach through the screen and slap that guy.
Yeah,
he's such a dick.
That's why I was like, I can't believe after all that, she's like, I took the date. So,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
I mean, that's just, what am I trying to say? It's a bit of a comedic moment, she threatens the guy's physical safety, but still takes the date, like you said. And that's funny enough in itself, but to me, it's like, well, what does that say about her character? She is not your typical. You can't. I guess what I'm trying to say, you can't really pin her down. Mm-hmm. She's not just this. Oh, it's like the it's like last issue with the baby. She's this rule breaking.
It's like unpredictable,
rough and tumble kind of character, and yet she's very, she was depicted almost motherly with that baby. Mm-hmm. And now with this, she could totally break this guy into pieces in a matter of seconds, but she still takes the date. So yeah, she's totally unpredictable. I love it.
I liked it too. And then she's like, but I like the fact too, when she says that she's going to take the date, she's like, he doesn't know what he's going to get into. Yeah.
One of my big regrets about this story is that we don't see this date in this storyline.
That would have been great.
I mean, just to illustrate for people who haven't read this yet, how what's the word I'm looking for? Not creepy, because that's my word for savant, but just I don't know, dickish, I guess. But one beautiful night with your host Josh, dinner, dancing, the full meal deal with extra Josh on the side.
I know.
God.
And it was such a I don't know, like douchey line, but it was like a good one, You're like, like you can see some guy saying something like that. He's like, oh.
Well, yeah, douche. That's a good word for it. But he, you're right. He's even though he's such a dick. Simone does. He's not just a caricature. I mean, he borderline caricature for sure. But Simone doesn't sink to that level with the character. She does give him a little bit more than just being that guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I do appreciate that.
I think one of my other notes was, I think in this issue, especially when I was bringing up like the sexy stuff, I think in this issue we see this is where the both Huntress and Canary use their sexuality a lot, I think. Oh,
that's true. You're right. Yeah, both with the car parking dude, Josh. And Canary comes on to Creo, right? Or maybe was that last issue she did that?
Was it last issue? I thought it was earlier this issue.
Was. Or maybe no. I think you're right. It was earlier this issue. I'm scrolling here on my iPad here.
I know, same thing.
No, I think it was last issue, because
it was last issue.
The scene at the beginning is between her and Fisher.
Oh yeah, okay.
And he actually I didn't talk about that. He's trying to help, and this is where he, like I said in the synopsis, he reveals that he's in this position because he's being blackmailed and his family is being held hostage, so he doesn't have a choice. But yeah, you're right. It was last issue where she tries to come on to Creote, and it doesn't work. And then we get Huntress doing what she's doing. But it's both are in service, it's a means to an end to get them to the next step, to get them closer to either saving Canary or Canary herself trying to get out of the situation. Mm-hmm. So they're not concerned about the fact that that they're using their sexuality in that way. It's just, this is part of the job. I have to do this to obtain that type of thing. Yeah. It's very spy-like. If you think about it, a spy is having to do certain things that you wouldn't normally do in your life, just to achieve whatever the goal is.
I guess what my point was that it wasn't like sort of like a tasteless thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like you said, there was a purpose as to why they were doing that. Whereas, you might read something else and they're just throwing it in there because they want to put a little like eye candy or, into the story. Where here it's for a reason they're doing it. It's for a reason. I just repeated myself. Sorry.
No. Again, you have expressed it in a better way than I did. Well, and speaking of not a sexual way, but the scene where she slipped the transmitter by Fisher in the drink, and then she's trying to get them all out so she can actually contact Barbara and continue with her plan. And that's when she uses she says, if you guys are keeping me here, there are some things I'm gonna need, certain products, feminine products. And then the looks on Creote and Savant's face with that, it's like the horror. Oh my gosh.
That was a great scene.
I loved it.
And I also liked how she was like surprised when she was waiting for it. Like, she's in her mind, she's thinking it's going to be hot. And she goes, oh, it's cold. But I liked that scene too. I thought that was pretty cool because it's a lot, again, like all that, there's always all this build or this tension that's going on. Even this one little panel, and it's one of the things that I'm really liking about this particular storyline.
Well, and again, with that scene there, just the one panel, we're not told what she goes, what the hell? It's not hot at all. It's cold. It's ice cold. oh,
Yeah.
she immediately understands what's going on. We don't, of course, which is, I mean, that's a great way to convey information, but not spilling the beans.
Give it away. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love how they do that consistently throughout this whole storyline. And then on the next page, we get, this is where Dinah's using the transmitter to talk to Barbara. And I love the look on Barbara's face when she hears Dinah's face. You know, just that elation, that happiness that she's still there. We can still do something.
And I like her outfit. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Barbara's outfit?
Yeah, I couldn't tell first if it was a costume or if it was a dress, because it kind of looked like a costume on the top. But I thought that I liked it because we're not seeing them. She's the only one that's getting to change any clothes, because we're seeing Huntress and Canary in the same outfits, and even the guys, they're all in the same outfits. So she's the only one that's kind of still living in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
Living each day. She's telling us the time passing, I guess, right?
Ooh,
because
yeah,
she's changing clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, it stood out to me, and I was like, oh, I kind of like her dress. I'm just throwing it out there because it popped out at me.
I do love that. That's one thing I don't like about superhero well, I guess comics in general, but you know, they all wear the same clothes all the time. I can only imagine artists, you know, I have to draw this again.
I know, it's probably, I mean, and again, that's one of the reasons, just tangenting again, why I liked, from Morning Glories, is because I really liked how Joe always would go out and look for fashionable clothes and draw them on, you know, each of the characters. And that was one of my favorite things about reading that book. I was like, because you don't see superheroes always changing clothes, and even if they are in civilian clothing, it's usually the same thing every time, you know. So I do compliment the artists when they go out there and find different things for the people to wear.
Yeah. Well, and to touch on that, there's something that happens in the next issue that Bendis does in regards to Canary's look that I really appreciated too. So I'll mention that later.
Okay.
We finally get Canary finally turns the tables a little bit and actually gets loose, of course, but then captures Savant. Unfortunately, it's short-lived, but she discovers that she has. What does she say here? This is another, I think, continuity thing. Oh no, that comes later. I'm gonna skip here something.
Well, she does say that he fights like Batman, but he doesn't have his radar.
Right, and that comes into play later. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's something about where she's at that I guess it's a next issue.
Oh no, is it the stairs?
Yeah.
This is when I realized that she actually had that her legs were broken. At this point, I still didn't even realize her, because I had missed that panel.
Okay.
So I still didn't know, because the casts were gray, and so I thought they were her boots. Had the casts, I think, been like white, like usually casts are, I would have immediately known that they were casts. So all this time, I thought they were boots until that scene with the staircase, and she's like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, she can't. I guess her legs were broken. She's not going to be able to go down those stairs."
Well, and then you also get they don't really play with this too much until the next issue, I think, but or maybe the 2 issues following. But you know, Barbara, of course, doesn't have the use of her legs, and we see on the cover Barbara on the ground, but I guess it's not really the same thing. But I guess I'm kind of conflating the whole idea of the fact that both of them don't have full use of their legs, and
but she does. She does bring that up, though. Canary, sorry, I cut you off again. But Canary does bring that up, because she goes, "I wish I knew how." What did she say? That I wish I had watched Barbara when she's fighting with just her hands, or something like that.
You're right,
or something like that. So I was going to say one thing, but I know it's going to. I'm trying to hold it back because I noticed it when we get to the I think the final issue, about what I was just bringing up, where he says that he has that he fights like Batman but doesn't have his radar, because she does say that twice, because she says that in the other issue. But
well, and this issue,
wait till we get there.
After she starts to escape, really the rest of the issue is the fight scene between Huntress and Creote, and it ends. This is probably my least favorite cliffhanger. ending of an issue, because it's just they both are in bad spots and looks like something bad's going to happen, and that's it. It's not as dramatic, I guess, as some of the others have been.
Yeah, so I don't really have anything more to say on that one. I don't know if you do.
Oh, in this issue in particular, there were a couple, I thought, interesting juxtapositions of panels or narrative situations. So, let's see, on pages 7 and 8. So Savant talks about, and I've said this before, but Savant talks about how he didn't like how Batman talked to him, not like an equal at all. And then on the next page, we get Huntress telling Josh to talk to her, talk to me like I'm as dumb as you are. So I thought that was an interesting, because that goes from one page to the next. So I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition of how people are being talked down to, or at least demanding to. In one case, being demanding to be talked down to. But I thought that was kind of neat, a neat bit of wordplay. And then on the final page, there is 2 panels of both the women, Dinah and Huntress, saying, well, F, because they realize that they're not in a good spot. And I thought that was a nice transition or a nice juxtaposition of that. So two interesting things in that issue. That's all I have on that then.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool that they are like mirroring each other.
Yeah. Okay. Issue 59?
Yeah.
So here we get finally all 3 women on the cover, looking like the team that they will become. Thought that was a nice, with the clock tower in the background. Oh, and I just noticed. Oh no, that's a gargoyle wing. Never mind. I thought that was Batman in the background in silhouette. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Oh, that would have been fun.
That would have ruined it for me. But there are bats in the upper corner of it. So, well, it's Gotham. Anyway, issue 59, Savant threatens Canary. Huntress attacks Creote, and Fisher takes advantage of the situation by going to his family, who are being kept in the wine cellar. He gets them outside and tells his wife to leave with her daughters, and then heads back in to help Canary. A major confrontation is about to take place when Canary calls every phone in the house and proceeds to turn the tables on Savant. First, she reveals how insignificant he is to Greek law enforcement and his father. Canary joins in, laughing at Savant's daddy issues. Then Oracle lowers the boom by revealing to Savant that she has infiltrated his computer network and has released a file-eating virus. Canary asks Creote out of the blue if Savant knows that Creote is in love with him. Huntress asks Creote if they still need to fight, and of course, they do. Fisher hits Creote from behind, and Creote returns the favor by knocking Fisher unconscious. Huntress takes the opportunity to do the same to Creote. A lot of back and forth in this issue. The ladies also obtain Savant's backup files, but Canary and Oracle discuss the ethics of using this information. And we find out that Canary destroys those disks, and that, however, Oracle is restoring the data that she erased. A lot of stuff goes on in this issue.
Yep. So one of the things I was going to, and I think I wrote it down in one of my other notes, there's a lot of little, I think like pop culture references. And since I don't remember which was the first one that I noticed, but in this particular one, because I wrote it big, she tells, well, first off, I thought it was kind of funny that building that they're in looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa because it's leaning. So I was like, I thought that was kind of weird. So I don't know if that was what they meant to do there. But where she tells Savant, "I'll shake you all night long," and I started laughing because I was like, that was totally AC/DC lyric right there. And like, I love that song. I just started laughing.
Well, and she ends that with "you pretty man," and she makes a couple comments like that. I don't know if it's in this issue or other issues too, but she says to Savant's face something along those lines about him being a pretty guy. I just thought that was interesting that she would do that, given the situation she's in. She's still trying to, I don't know.
Well, she's not really.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because she's not flirting with him,
No.
but she's still kind of like attracted to him, I guess.
Do you think it's that she's attracted to him, or is it
Maybe
just that
something.
she's trying to? I took it to mean she's trying to have some sort of put one over on him, or have some sort of power over him by using language to demean him into just.
Also, kind of would be like kind of the opposite, where usually a male would kind of demean the woman, but she's she's flipping the switch and doing it on him. I guess I was thinking that she kept finding him, like thinking that she was kind of attracted to him because I felt like some of it was in her thoughts when she was saying, because she was like, damn it, he's still good looking, or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. She did do that, I think, in an earlier issue. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're only human. If you're going to get kidnapped by somebody who's attractive, you're like, damn, why does he have to be a lowlife?
I also take it to mean, this is really demonstrating she's not afraid here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she probably is to some degree, because this guy could easily kill her given her physical situation. She can't really fight back as she would normally, right? But she's not paralyzed by that fear.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah, she's attempting to control the situation using what little she has, which is one, her words, and her one good hand that she will use. So I just really am impressed by how Canary is shown here in this situation.
Well, then maybe that's what the whole thing is about, is that the fact that she still sees that he's attractive, that she doesn't see him as a threat. You know what I mean? Or like, usually if the bad guy is ugly, or, and so she sees him as ugly, so she's like, there's no, I guess you how do you say, he looks menacing, so she's going to be scared of him because of that. But this guy, like you're saying, she's in control of it. She knows what she's going to do, and she doesn't find him to be a threat. He's just like a pretty boy to her. So she doesn't, he's not a threat to her. So maybe that's kind of what's happening here, because he's, so that's why she's not scared, because she doesn't see him as a threat. Regardless of everything that he's done to her so far, she already knows I could take him down. He's just gotten lucky so far.
Well, and that reminds me of something that I was going to mention in the last issue, and I forgot. Simone does try to depict Savant as this cultured individial whose underlying menace is punctuated by his craziness, his issues with his head, and just the sheer, what he does to Canary, that the torture, not torture, but the physical brutality. That's the word I was looking for. Because, as Fisher goes exploring the house, the cellar, looking for his family, it's because he remembers last issue what Savant says, which was, "Do you think because I know which wine to order with trout, I won't slit your throat?" I mean, that was a pretty good distillation of Savant's character right there. And so, yeah, he's this pretty boy genius, but he's also this psychotic dude.
And that's one of the things too I like that was going on, was like he kept slipping up, but he didn't notice it. Like he kept giving hints. Yeah, he kept giving hints away to things just by general conversation. And everybody else is like, "Oh yeah, okay, maybe he found this. Maybe this is what's happening here."
Yeah, he's not as smart as he thinks he is, for sure.
Yeah, he thinks he's smooth, but then he slips up.
And I wonder if that whole bit there that I just read and referenced is a setup for what comes at the end of this issue, where he does that again, where he reveals something that he probably doesn't intend to reveal.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably why he has like Creo kind of as his backup, because he's the one that's kind of has to remind him, like, okay, did you take your meds? Like he's not just like his sidekick. Yeah, he's just like taking care of him too, I guess.
Well, and like I said in the synopsis, and we where that comes in later towards the end of the issue, right? Yeah. So there a lot of fight scenes between Huntress and Creote, and a lot of Dinah sliding down the staircase banister to get away from Savant. and we get we'll have to come back to that big reveal that I mentioned between Oracle and Savant, but is it here? Is it? Oh man.
I think it's later.
Is it later? I'm missing, but basically, Dinah says, and maybe it's a different issue. I don't. Oh no, here it is. Sorry, page 15 for us in the digital copy. This is after Oracle breaks into Savant's system, and that causes Savant to run out of the room. And then, just out of the blue, Dinah says, "Hey, Creo, does Savant know you're in love with him?" And Creo just kind of pauses for a second and says, "He does not."
Yeah, I had that on. I was like, that was like a weird random outing is what I had in my notes.
Yeah. So, my point being is, the reason Creo does this isn't he's not in it for the money. He genuinely cares for
him,
for Savant, which was, I added a bit of more dimension to these characters that I appreciated.
Which we see, I think, in like the final issue, or is it the final issue or the next issue, when the security guard says that Creo was taken someplace, and you see on his face like concern, and I think that was the motivation for him to break out. And I know I just jumped ahead, but
okay,
yeah, but I started to wonder if perhaps there was more to their relationship that we didn't get to see.
Yes. I do like that scene where finally Oracle is in, and what I really liked is we get the visual of it is Oracle's avatar. We're so far the communication between the two has been through text and through phone, but it's really about the idea of Oracle. I mean, this is the thing that Savant has been pursuing all this time. Who is Oracle? What is Oracle? What can I get from Oracle? And the way that Oracle can enact some sort of vengeance, some sort of balance to this relationship, this weird relationship, is she infiltrates his computer system, and it's her as Oracle, not as Barbara. I mean, it's all one and the same, right? But just the idea of the avatar coming into this and breaking Savant down into he's just a scared little boy who wants daddy's approval. That's the gist of his character. Forget the whole he kicks like Batman and all that stuff. He's a genius level at technology and all this stuff. He's really just a little boy who wants daddy to hug him.
I like that avatar. It's really creepy.
I know. It is kind of creepy, actually. You're right. But yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And this is the issue where I was talking about how I really like the lighting. So like right. when Creo and Huntress are fighting, and there's a lot of all this like highlights going on in between them. They're like in the kitchen, and I liked how they had that. You could see kind of where the light sources were coming from. So there was a lot of things to do with light, I think, in this issue. And then when you go a little bit forward, then you have Oracle on the computer when she's finding out about. And that was really cool too when she told him. I liked how they went back to this when the previous issues when he said, "I'm going to ask you the same question in 3 different languages." Oh, right. And then so he did, and then he replied it, and I was like, "Well, I don't know what languages these are." So I liked when she's figuring out who he is. She's like, "Okay, well, he spoke this one, and dialect this one. But this one was stronger, And so I thought that was kind of cool that they went back. They didn't forget about that happened. They went back and they explained, and it was part of how she discovered who he was. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, and that goes back to your earlier point too about how Savant gives up something that he probably didn't intend to, right? Because by showing off, he revealed clues that allowed allowed Barbara to trace who he actually is. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, it's a lot of it is just like you said. He's just a little rich boy, and that's what gives him away.
Yeah, you're talking about the light source. I was just flipping through and.
Oh yeah, so right there, there's the computer screens. She's looking in there. When Huntress is sliding down the banister, and she says that she hopes there's not something there on the bottom, and then as she's sliding down, we see this shiny
Yep.
thing. I don't even know what you would call those things at the end of a banister, but right there. So I just thought, I don't know, this one really came out to me. And again, some other scenes, more highlights with the Huntress and Creo fighting.
Yeah, because there's a fireplace in this room, and yeah, you see the light coming off of that on Huntress on page 9 here. That looks really cool. And then the computer screens, the just the house lighting. Yeah, they did an awesome job in the coloring of this.
And then another thing I noticed when Fisher finally got to his kids, I noticed that it looks like Bendis draws a lot of the children the same, a lot of the dark-haired girls, because Alicia looks just like. At first, I was like, "Is she the girl that was holding Wonder Woman earlier in the scene?" And then in the next issue with the other little girl, she looks kind of similar. It's just they just have different eye colors.
You're right. I had not noticed that before. They do. Those 3 young girls do look very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. And which is funny because Mom and the other sister are light-haired, fair-haired, but I guess that little girl took on Dad's dark-haired genes or something. But
and doesn't he kind of look like, what is that one actor, that old actor from Gone with the Wind? What is his name?
Oh my gosh!
Oh
yes, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember.
Terrible.
His name. I was going to say Cary Grant. That's not right.
I'm trying to be fast. Clark Gable.
Yes, there we go. Yes, you're right.
I was like, it looks like Clark Gable.
He does a little
I noticed
bit.
that a few times. It's kind of funny. I think sometimes when I'm going through these comic books and like I recognize like a face, I'm like, that has to be their reference. I don't know if because you read The Wicked and the Divine, correct?
Yeah.
Because I'm behind on it, but one of the earlier issues, someone popped up on it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was the girl from Misfits!" And it had to be totally her because it looked exactly like her.
I did not realize that.
And the funny thing is, talking about like growth of writers, and this was one of the things I wanted to see too, seeing something that reading something that early on that Gil had wrote, as opposed to now, was like just talking about that real quick, was like Jamie McKelvey when I think he first, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up if I ever talk about this, but anyways, when they did Phonograph, I think he had said that he wasn't good at drawing certain things, so he drew that main character as himself, something like that. So they all looked like him, so he drew himself over and over. I'm pretty sure that's what I had read. So it's it's when I feel like I recognize a face, I'm like, I wonder if that was like the reference that they were going for,
Yeah.
I've noticed a few times that this Fisher has looked like Cary Grant to me.
Well, and speaking of Fisher, that's one of the things I like about this issue is that, he's not, again, this is one of the things I love about this series of issues is that he's not the cardboard, character that we saw in the first issue. He's not the businessman who is going to steal the retirement funds of his company and live on the hog, high on the hog on some desert, some island somewhere. He's a guy who got into a bad spot, but he genuinely cares about his family, and he could have easily just left with them. And just let whatever, the chips fell wherever they did in this battle between these 4 other characters. He goes back in to help, so, he has an arc, he starts out as this and you think he's that, and he helps a little bit. And then he puts his life on the line to help out. I thought that was a great, sort of redemption arc for this one minor character in the story.
Yeah, definitely. That was like, how do you say, that's like I don't want to say technical, textbook act 1, act 2, act 3 of a script right there. He did have his redemption story, and we really never found out why he wanted to do that. Why did he want to steal the money? Maybe he was trying to get out of another situation. Maybe he wasn't really the bad guy to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, he was going to do this thing, but what motivated? We never heard what motivated him to take all this money. If that makes any sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, yeah. I see. When I first read that, I had the same question, but I think something in what came before this issue led me to believe that it was all a setup.
Mm-hmm.
That Savant set up that scenario that lured Canary and Oracle in the first place. I could be wrong. Maybe I misread that, but that's how I interpreted that.
Okay.
Which that makes it even more makes the Fisher's character even more interesting to me, because it wasn't that he was going to do a bad thing, got caught on it,
mm-hmm.
and then had to pay a price, so to speak. It's just that he just was he got caught up in something that was far beyond him, and
mm-hmm.
yet he still tries to help. I just really like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that makes sense.
I mean, either way, he goes back in. If it's the other situation or what I just described, doesn't matter. He still redeems himself.
And I totally thought when they were leaving, I thought they were going to leave him in there. I was like, that's messed up. He went to go help you guys. You guys are going to totally leave him there now. That's what it's just that little things. I feel like there's so many like surprises and certain things that you didn't think were going to happen, and that's the type of stuff I like to see or read to keep me interested. Is the unexpected. Mm-hmm. When things are too obvious, then that's usually when I lose interest right away.
Yeah. Here on page 18, this is where Dinah makes that other, you referenced before how she makes another comment about Savant's lack of
mm-hmm.
Batman's radar,
mm-hmm.
because they, looks like Huntress throws a fire poke.
Oh, into his hand?
Into his hand, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, another repeated, I guess, text was Huntress again saying she's the bad one. So I kind of give him like a hierarchy of badness, where Huntress is the one who'll just do whatever, and then Babs, and then Dinah is kind of the one that has more of the reservations of doing the bad stuff, I guess. Well, whereas the other ones will kind of do what they need to do, and especially Huntress, but she still has that. I don't know. What did she say? Did she had too much humanity? Is that what someone told her? I thought Barbara told her something like that.
Yes. Well, and she proves to be the most moral mm-hmm. character in this situation, because Dinah tricks Savant because it's weird. Once they defeat him, tie him up. Actually, it's very weird, because on page 20 there's one panel where we just see Savant's face, and he's got he's got this kind of menacing look on his face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then on the next page, it's a totally different thing, and he's defeated, and he seems confused because Dinah tricks him, saying, "You already told us where the backup files were," and he says, "I did. Yeah, you did yesterday. Remember? I guess I should have hidden them better, so you know all about the wine cellar." So Huntress goes in and gets them, but it's just, at first I was like, that is a total incongruity of the character. But then again, he's also on meds, and
he has this weird like memory, like time lapse or something that's going. So I don't know if maybe he has like a split personality, or maybe he loses time and so he forgets what he says. Because that's the same thing that I noticed too. I was like, okay, first he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna be held for long or whatever, and then he's like, oh, okay, and giving up all this other information.
But it has been since the second issue of this arc, it's been a long setup for this payoff. So this whole thing about him, the memory thing and all that, and
mm-hmm.
just so that they could get just so they could get these backup files at the end of this story. So, but as I was saying, Dinah gets the files, and she's having this ethical conversation
mm-hmm.
with Barbara about what, and this echoes what she said earlier in the story about, you're the one that has all access to, excuse me, all these secrets of other people, what's going to prevent you from doing something bad with that information?
Mm-hmm.
And Barbara's counter is, I'm a good person. There's good things that we can do based on this information. But Dinah doesn't trust her, because in the end, we see, or do we see this, or were we told this? I forget now. Oh yeah, we're told. Huntress says, "You going to tell her that you threw the discs in the fire before you even asked her to choose?" And yeah, that's where I'm, the whole thing with Savant and whatever, that situation, whatever. This is where the story got really interesting for me, because we have these two friends who trust each other, who have worked together for a long time, and yet there's this division, this chink in the armor, if you will, between them. And now it's this setup between Dinah and Huntress, who knows what Dinah did. Barbara doesn't, and yet Barbara is doing, as we see at the very end of the issue, Barbara doesn't know yet what Dinah has done, but she is, either she's figured it out, or she's decided that she's going to do this anyway. She's going to restore the primary system to have access to the files.
And she does kind of say that she could do that. So I'm thinking that probably what we have here too is that Dinah knows that she's going to do this either way, so she throws away the discs, but Barbara knows that she's going to do something. Does that make sense? Okay, maybe I'm not making sense. Where like they each know what each one of them is thinking and what they're going to do, so they still do it. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
So like Dinah knew that what she would do with those discs, so she got rid of them. But Barbara already had her backup, so she's like, she was going to do that, but she knows how Dinah is, that Dinah probably wasn't going to give her those discs, so she already had her backup plan. Does that make sense? But they're not going to discuss it amongst each other.
Yeah, they know each other so well that they don't have to express what they should express with each other. Yeah.
Something like that.
It certainly does. Like I said, this is the thing that really makes me excited about this story and these characters, is that Dinah is the more moral one of the two, for sure. Because Barbara, she doesn't outright say that she doesn't want the discs. She won't do anything with the discs. She kind of side skirts the issue by saying, "I'm sorry, I got a little pushy. I'm not certain we did the right thing," I guess referring to the fact that the discs, she's not going to use the discs. Mm-hmm. But she never explicitly says, "You're right, Dinah, you're right. I shouldn't use this information. I shouldn't have access to it." And on top of that, behind Dinah's back, essentially, she is going forward with her plan of restoring it, of using that information, and says, and this is the last words in the issue, "I hope you can forgive me." And it's interesting because, in some part, because until now, I've always seen Barbara as she's always been the voice of reason in the Bat family, even more than some other characters, and definitely more than Batman. And yet here she is being shown having a different facet to her personality, one that is not as altruistic as I've seen her before. And I really like that aspect. Not that she's perhaps immoral or doing something not for the right reason, but just, as a character moment, that's really interesting to me.
It's kind of like the same thing, I guess, with Dick. Once they shed their goody persona, her Batgirl, she was kind of forced out of it. Him, Robin, they took on these other personas, and so their whole character changed. Like now they were no longer like young proteges. Now they are their own person. So we get to see more of how they are, where before they were kind of doing what Batman wanted them to do, or they were worried about what Batman, what they did, like how he was going to react. But now, like, she's on her own. She's not worrying about that. So we get to see a different side of her that we didn't get to, that probably we never saw before.
Yes. Yeah.
And like you said, they never asked for his help or anything like that.
Yeah. Simone's just, and Bennis are just creating some really cool dynamics here, I guess.
And I like that one panel on the last page too. This was probably one of my last notes. Was I like that silhouette of Huntress and Dinah on the motorcycle riding through the night. That was pretty.
With both of their hair just kind of blowing
blowing in the wind. Yeah,
it's a lot of hair.
Yeah, I think one of my last notes was a lot of trust and mistrust.
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't think that we really get a good resolution to that in this story, but it does come up again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. And here is, I forgot to mention, this is the issue where they do the comment on Huntress's costume. So on page 20, Canary asks Huntress about the new costume, to which Huntress replies, 700 sit-ups a day. And then Canary says, say no more.
That's funny. Okay, so I got nothing more on that one.
Okay, issue 60.
Yeah.
It says on the cover here, the hunt for Canary, and we see Black Canary in a wheelchair with a arm cast and leg cast, but there's another canary on the screen that she's watching. What could this possibly be? So anyway, this is the plot of this is Huntress, dressed as Canary, meets with a senator who worked with Savant, and apparently who knows that Black Canary is Dinah Lance. That's her last name. He wants the backup discs from Oracle, or he will come after her and the others. In jail, Savant is beaten by a guard under the senator's employ. The senator wants to know what Savant knows about Oracle. Everybody wants to know all this stuff about Oracle. Back at the clock tower, Dinah and Barbara discusses how Huntress has been helpful while Dinah recuperates. Barbara offers Dinah a quote unquote promotion to work in the tower instead of being a field agent. Dinah, however, refuses, and Barbara explains that she's afraid of letting Dinah be hurt any further. When Dinah doesn't agree, Barbara fires her.
Boom, boom, boom. So one of the things that I thought was totally going to happen with this security guard, because they kept making such a, and I guess I don't know if I was let down by it, but I thought because he was giving away so much information, when he was telling him like, oh, they pay me to give the dirt and the gossip or whatever, I thought that was going to come into play somewhere later on in the storyline, because since it took so much dialogue.
Right.
And then it just was kind of, he never showed up again. So I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see how that was going to play out.
Yeah, that whole jail scene, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's pretty long.
I think 6 or 7 pages. Yeah. I didn't like it as much as what else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I will say positive about it is that one, like I said, it ties that situation, ties Savant to the senator,
mm-hmm.
Ties that guard to the senator. But again, we talked about how things are played out kind of unexpectedly sometimes in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would expect at the end of last issue, when they're defeated, off they go to jail, new story, new villain, new situation. But no, this is a continuation of this. And Savant is in jail for probably a matter of hours, really. And he gets out. So it's not over yet. So I kind of like that aspect of it. But beyond that, it was just very much a kind of in a way, to me, wasted space.
Yeah, and then I didn't know
a whole lot out of it.
Yeah, and I didn't know then also if they were trying to build up that security guard, the one that was in there with him. And I was like, I probably didn't really even need that.
Yeah. I mean, they even make a point to, the guard who's escorting him to his cell makes a point of referring to the other guard that you're talking about as being deaf, but he's not. He turns out he's not. So it's just this weird, I don't know, this weird setup.
Mm-hmm.
To take up far too many pages in this issue for my taste, but because
so
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and like I had mentioned in the previous issue, because I had jumped ahead, I said the only thing I really got out of it was when he started talking about Creo and then seeing then Savant's reaction to that. And then so that was the only thing that I really got out of that once he kind of was like egging him on a little bit. And even then I thought he kind of took a long time to even attack him. I was expecting him to do it sooner.
Oh, I'm looking at that scene again. You know, you mentioned this is a mirror of what happened between Savant and Canary earlier, because not only does Savant break his own thumb to slip out of the cuffs, he says to the guard, "I'm ready, tough guy. Whatever you're planning, it's going to cost you. I'll shake you all night long."
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I was going to say, that it seemed like what he does is like he mimics like what he sees, like how that's why she said he fights like Batman, but he doesn't have his radar, because he just saw how Batman fights. He hadn't seen what the other stuff that Batman does. And then here he saw that she did that with the thumb, and he's just mimicking like the things that he saw.
Right. So
I was like,
yeah, he has there's no art in this guy. He's all edifice. He's a facade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. I hadn't thought of that.
So I thought that was pretty interesting when I saw that. I was like, oh, so he's just taking from like other people.
I guess there was a little bit more to it than I initially thought then. Because the really what I liked about this story was this whole Huntress pretending to be Canary, meeting with this senator, you know, the corruption, because this goes on into the next issue as well. Because this senator, you know, my notes aren't that many on this particular issue, but the one thing I did point out here is, like on page 10, the senator refers to Oracle as a he. He just assumes that it's got to be a guy that has amassed all this knowledge and has all this power theoretically. And my note is, God, I hate guys like this. I hate these old white guys with power like this, political power. It's a trope that is played far too much for my taste in stories. But considering that it is reality, it's really reflective of American society, unfortunately. So I mean, these kind of guys, these are the kind of villains that I hate in stories, and by hate I mean not because they're in them, but I want the good guys to really take them down and take them down hard.
And the sad thing is, it's not even like you said, you know, it's not even a dated concept, because people like that still exist today.
Yeah.
So even though this was written in 2003, this could have been written yesterday.
You know. He's very reflective of, like I said, a trope that continues to exist, and it's unfortunate. But Canary Huntress does a great job at handling him and posing as Canary, but you know, she does not take anything from anybody. I love that the confidence that she has, the under what am I trying to say? She's trying really hard to hold in her natural instinct, which is to punch the guy. And she does say something here at some point about so she arrives on a motorcycle. Oh yeah, here it is. This is on page 11.
Okay, I'm on that page.
If your men get any funny yet murderous notions, I should warn you that the headlight on my motorcycles filmed this whole conversation in infrared and X-ray. Martian tech, Senator. The JLA is listening to your every patronizing syllable. Of course, the senator is not buying it, but still, you know, Dinah or Barb, I think it's Dinah, references later that, you know, Huntress thinks well on her feet. She's not just a punching tool. She's not just about the hurt on the bad guy. She actually has some some finesse to her as well.
There's I don't have very many notes on here either. I have one where they again they have another costume joke. This time it's the opposite way, where she says something about the fishnet stockings.
Yeah, to be fair, I guess, we complain about Huntress's thing, but we didn't really talk about Canary's either. Her whole bottom half of her body is exposed, right? So, but at least she has upper body protection, I guess.
And I am glad that this kind of is happening like right after that that initial storyline, so that she's in a wheelchair. She's recuperating now, and it's not like a lot of time hasn't passed where, she's already back on her feet and all this kind of stuff now. And then she's her and Barbara right now, like you were saying earlier, are now kind of at the same level, because she is, at the moment, she's disabled and she can't, do a lot of stuff where she has 2 broken legs and a messed up hand. And so she's, now they're both kind of in the same, a little bit more equal, I guess, at this moment.
Yeah. And this scene between them, this long extended scene throughout the issue is, where is it that she says this? So Barbara says, I'm sick and tired of seeing, so this is her talking about the promotion that she'd like Dinah to work in the tower with her.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sick and tired of seeing people I care about in hospital beds and morgues. And I love the reaction. Instead of Dinah kind of getting, I don't know, taking umbrage to that or reacting in a negative way, she's very empathetic and says, sweetie, gives Barbara a hug and says, I love you too. I love that you care about me. I do. That's a reaction I don't think we see a whole lot in entertainment, generally speaking, but definitely superhero comics. And then there's another part. I guess it's next issue. Sorry, I was about to jump ahead, but it has to do.
Both issues are pretty similar.
Yeah, you mentioned before about how you think Barbara is projecting,
mm-hmm.
and I think Dinah picks up on that. We'll talk about that in the next issue.
But I think they do have another good dialogue in this issue. The two of them together. I like the fact that we got another long kind of conversation between them. But now it's a little bit different. Whereas before it was kind of more lighthearted and fun, and they were just, being two friends here. Now it's almost like a employee-employer conversation.
Well, and that's definitely how Barbara is trying to couch it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Dinah's having nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm. So I did enjoy that part of it, getting another one of these little conversation, and then her handstand.
Yeah, look at me. I'm fine. Yeah. I got 2 broken legs, but I'm fine.
I think and then the other scene too. Where was it? Is it in this issue? Or is it next issue? Oh yeah, it must be next issue. Wait, how does it end? I just forgot. Oh yeah, when you said when she fired her. Okay, I'll wait till next issue. So these two kind of melded in a little bit to me. Yeah, the only other thing, I don't really have any other notes on here. The only other thing was I just kind of laughed when she ordered pasta from, it looked like Guy Fieri. And that's what I was talking about. Where sometimes they throw out some little references to like pop culture.
I totally missed that. I read the name, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together there. That's funny. So
yeah, so I don't really have anything else to say on this episode. I mean, I keep saying episode, issue.
Issue 61. Oh, the last one. With interestingly Nightwing on the cover. So we finally have to have a guy on the cover.
Yes. And it wasn't Batman.
It wasn't Batman. At least it's Nightwing. I'm okay with that. Nightwing's my favorite character in comics, so I'm all right with that. But we still have all 3 of our major characters on here, but we're shown different situations. Things are split up a little bit, and the cover says "tough choices." So
we do see a Batgirl on there.
Yes, we do.
And see, here's where some of my questions started to come up because I didn't know at this point who was playing Batgirl. Batgirl. But this costume is amazing. So I had to Google it. And so it's Cassandra Cain?
Yep.
Correct? Is that the one that's your favorite?
My favorite Batgirl? No, that's actually Stephanie Brown.
Oh, okay.
I have read very little of Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. But I do know I have friends, other people that I converse with on Twitter and whatnot. Cassandra Cain is an immensely popular character in the Bat universe, and I know is very much a favorite as Batgirl to a lot of people. So it's much like Birds of Prey, the comic. Going back and reading Cassandra Cain's run as Batgirl is something that I want to do just so I have that background, that history, and to determine for myself if Stephanie Brown actually really is my favorite Batgirl, or is it really Cassandra Cain based on what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, just from my little Googling, she sounded pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that I might go back and look into her run as Batgirl also. And I really love that costume.
It's very distinctive, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, now that I'm looking at it, so she on the cover here, it shows her, the bat on her costume is this yellow outline. Mm-hmm. It's actually reminiscent of how Batman's bat is nowadays, because he just has that yellow outline around the black bat. So Cassandra Cain's Batgirl did it first.
I was going to say, he stole it from her.
Okay, so issue 61, Barbara and Dinah continue their conversation from last issue. Savant escapes from jail, as I think we mentioned already. Barbara goes out for lunch and encounters a waitress who has some wise words about the lasting and important nature of friendship. While Barbara is away, Dinah contacts several people asking for assistance in honing her fighting skills, including Nightwing, who informs Dinah that Barbara broke up with him in the recent past. Dinah then spars with Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, who tells her that Dinah's eyes betray her to her opponents and that she needs to teach her eyes to lie. Then Huntress, still returning from her visit with the senator, calls in to report that she's being followed. Despite that, Dinah suggests evasion, but Huntress decides to confront the senator's men, thus making Huntress true to her own self. I thought that was nice. They start shooting at her, so Dinah decides to stop them by finally we see her use her canary cry in this story, and then and proves that she's still a badass, because she not only does that, but also fights them from a wheelchair as well. Let's see here.
One thing
Go ahead.
Are you still doing the synopsis?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Huntress leaves just as Barbara returns. Savant calls Oracle and attempts to threaten her, but Barbara turns the tables again on him, saying that she's everywhere, watching and closing in. Barbara proposes a partnership with Dinah and also to bring on Huntress as a field operative. And that's how this wonderful storyline ends. So what were we about to say?
Sorry, my brain was like, I was clicking once you had said about Dick and Barbara had broken up, but we forgot to mention also that Dinah had brought up that the reason why that Babs didn't like Huntress was because she had slept with Dick.
Yeah, that's right.
In case anybody didn't know, prior to them dating. And then she brings up all of Oliver's conquests. Oh. Yeah,
but notice that Canary she doesn't seem to be as bothered by that as much as perhaps Barbara is about Dick's relationship or former relationship with Huntress, which actually ties into something that is said twice by the two different women about basically not sweating the small stuff. Which I'll get to that, but I thought that's a nice tie-in there.
Yeah, and which is actually a good motto to live by, I think. People have told me that millions of times. Yeah. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
So I had one little funny note. I mean, it's not funny, but I thought because I really was into how Bendis was signing the names on all the covers, and I noticed I noticed on this one he changed how he signed. This time he put his whole name and then a little box around it.
Oh yeah.
And well, I'm assuming he wrote that unless it was is that Lay? Is that how you say that? Alex Lay? Unless they wrote it, but I noticed that right away that the signature was different.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that would be his signature. So I just throwing that out there. Those are the things I noticed. I always like to notice how the artists sign their names on the covers, and it's a weird thing of mine, I guess. I already mentioned the Batgirl. Oh my god, the Batgirl costume, because I put the black Batgirl costume. Oh, this is where I said that Savant learned. Looks like he learns from experience, and does he mimic? Is this where he breaks his thumb then in this issue? It wasn't last issue?
No, it is. It is this one.
Oh, okay. All right, so I jumped ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and in fact, again, I guess playing with that idea of how he mimics things, the guard says something about jab in the throat or smack in the back of the head. You'd be surprised how many take the throat. And then Savant turns that on the guard, so he gets free by breaking his thumb, right? Just like Dinah did. But then jabs the guy in the throat and then kicks him in the back of the head.
Yeah, it's like someone has to give him the ideas, and then he does it.
And does it well, but yeah, that's an interesting facet of his character I hadn't really noticed until you brought it up. I wonder if they play with that later. Because this Savant and Creote do return in the Birds of Prey comic. It might be the next volume or something, because there was one. It was the volume of the book right before the New 52, and I started reading. Oh, it was coming out of Brightest Day, that event. Okay. And I picked it up, mostly on the reputation of this volume of the book, and the fact that they were adding Dove, the character of Dove, to the series. So I love that character. So I wanted to read that. And I think Savant and Creote show up in that as well. But by that time, they're now allies of the Birds of Prey, I think. Oh. Maybe reluctant allies. I don't remember. It's been a while since.
Kind of like how Catwoman is, just kind of like that anti-hero type of thing. I can see that. Because even Creote doesn't seem like a major villain. He's just, he's just there protecting his buddy or whatever. Yep.
What do you think of that scene between Barbara and Dinah? So they go outside. They're out on the roof of the clock tower there.
To me, this was sort of like a continuation of the last issue's conversation. Again, I think this is where you start to kind of see, I feel like, more of where Babs's conflicts are coming into play. And like how we've been saying, her projecting her fears and stuff.
Yeah, this is where Dinah says for the first time, sometimes you have to let the small stuff go, referring to the fact that Dinah almost died. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's where I come across, or not come across. This is where I think of Dinah as, and this story really underlined this for me. Dinah is the strongest character here, strongest emotionally, probably physically as well, but just she's the most confident, the most determined character in this book. And that's not something I imagined I would feel going into this, because I have this view of Barbara from reading all this other stuff, right? That she's persevered after that major injury that left her crippled. She's built a life past that. She doesn't live in that trauma. She's done all this other stuff outside of or after that event, right? So I came into this thinking, well, Barbara's going to be my favorite character in this, but no, it actually turns out that Dinah is my favorite out of all three of them, because of that strength, that the fact that she doesn't dwell on the past and doesn't dwell on the mistakes that she's made. She just moves on and gets better. We see that after this scene where she calls all these people, like I mentioned in the synopsis, and starts training and all this stuff. So I really, really like this version of this character.
And that was probably my favorite part of this issue too. And maybe being that Gail Simone really likes Canary, that maybe that's why she is the one that's taking the front, or being the stronger one,
Mm-hmm.
or the one that's a little bit more level-headed going into this. This is the I don't want to say she's the real hero but she's just more. I think you already said it the best earlier.
Well, she's
where
kind
she's
of
just the one
the
that's
glue
more, yeah,
of the trio.
Mhm.
You would think Barbara would be, because she's quote unquote in charge of the operation, but it's not that.
And it's funny because you would think that she would be like, she's kind of playing like the middle sibling, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, so then after that's when he does that to him. I don't know. Most of the notes that I have for this I think, are just kind of general stuff that we've already talked about. The lunch scene. I mean, there wasn't really much going on there. Just,
Are you talking about the one with the waitress?
yeah.
Oh, see, that was my favorite thing about this whole issue.
Really?
Yeah. Well, second favorite thing. Just this random person, interacting with Barbara, her daughter, Renee. Well, that's funny.
Mhm.
Renee. We get Renee Montoya,
I know, I was thinking that same thing.
I didn't realize that until just now. But just how this one random person in the restaurant, she recognizes immediately that Barbara's in pain or that something's going on with her, and instead of just leaving her alone, she engages and helps Barbara through it, and helps Barbara learn a lesson about friendship.
I guess I took on the scene more when the daughter came out.
Oh, that
Since the first part was kind of weird, where she's like, "Hey, my brother's gonna make you this or whatever,"
yeah.
And then the little girl comes out and then gives her a hug, because everybody needs a hug. Everybody can use a hug. But I see what you're saying. But I guess for me, the scene, I like the scene more when the little girl came out and kind of saw, that she needed that, like a friend or something, and then the mom kind of was like, okay. I'll backtrack, kind of how got off on the wrong foot. Let me change this up a little bit.
No, you're right.
And then was friendly with her after that.
Yeah, that's exactly how it played out. So I rescind part of what I said about her not engaging with Barbara, or immediately engaging with Barbara, because it's the daughter that really forces the issue between the two of them. But maybe it's because I'm a parent, but the thing that Renee's mom, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we actually get the mom's name, the waitress's name, in this issue.
No, I don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
Because she calls her brother Rob, and then she calls him Roberto, and then Renee. But I don't think she has a name, and you can't see it on her shirt.
Exactly.
On her name tag.
And so when she's first introduced, I think, oh, this is a supporting character that we're going to see in future issues. At least I certainly hope so. So if I continue to read more of these issues, I want to see her and her daughter and that restaurant as a kind of like a supporting character element of the book. But she says, talking about her daughter, so her daughter was diagnosed at age 2 as developmentally disabled. The dad split because he couldn't take it. I can't control, this is the mom, I can't control Renee. I can't make her be anything she's not. But it would rip my heart out not to have her in my life. Friendships are like that too sometimes, I mean, maybe a little too on the nose, but, Barbara certainly needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And then, injecting a little bit of humor, the waitress, as she gets up, just to be clear, I'm expecting a massive tip. I really dug that whole scene and that character, the waitress is, I really hope that I see more of her later. So.
Yeah, I think, you're right. I think that it was nice the way they turned it around after that. Because Babs did need a little bit of a kick in the butt.
Yes. Well, and she says later in the issue too, for being, what is it, for being such an intelligent person, sometimes she forgets to be smart or something like that.
That's funny.
You mentioned a few issues back. I think in regards to the first issue, how Venice is trying to maybe sometimes cramming too much into a panel.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Simone and Venice, and I guess, was trying to cram too much into this issue because. So last issue ended with Huntress driving away from the senator's compound.
Mm-hmm.
This issue, she's still doing that. And in the meantime, Canary has time to, one, cut her hair, call Dick Grayson,
do some training
with Cassandra, and is that it? Oh, and then confront the senator's men when Huntress finally returns to the city. So there's just a lot going on in this particular issue. I thought, well, they're trying to wrap up the story, but man, they throw a lot of stuff in here.
I guess what I thought was that maybe Huntress kind of went off the grid and didn't think she was followed until she realized she was being followed. And that's when the scene picked up again, if that makes sense. Because remember, she threw off her wig, and then they made a comment about that. Mm-hmm. So I just figured that she was just on her way home, so that's why they didn't worry about her until she finally realized, oh, wait a minute, now I am being followed, I'm being chased. They didn't buy what I said.
Yeah. But
still, there is some sort of time lapse going on here.
Well, and this is one of those continuity errors that again, we talk about a few of those, but so because of all this stuff going on, we get the scene at the beginning with Dinah and Barbara in the clock tower, the roof of the clock tower. And so when I went back and reread this, kind of sort of absorbing the fact there's all this stuff going on, I looked at the clock tower, I looked at the clock itself, and it says a certain time, and then as time passes, and we get all the stuff that goes on, like I said, and then we get the end scene with them at the again at the roof of the clock tower. Mm-hmm. Guess what time is showing on there? The same one from the beginning of the issue, and presumably time has passed. But I'm just being picky again. But
no, I'm glad you brought that up because I did notice one of the scenes. And it might have been this issue where I saw the clock tower behind them, but they were inside.
Yeah.
I did notice the clock, and I was going to, and I should have wrote it down because I know would have went back and looked. I was going to see if we ever saw time moving on that clock, and yes. I did, and then I forgot about it. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that.
Yeah, I think the time there was like 10 till something, because it was at the end of last issue because the clock is right behind, or yeah. I guess in that case it would be 10 after. It was right behind Barbara.
Yeah.
In the scene. And then we get, it's like, what is it? It's 6:30 at the beginning of this issue. So presumably this is 6:30 in the morning.
So 12 hours have passed.
So yeah, has 12 hours passed in between the beginning and the end of this episode or issue, or is they just they forgot to move the clock? Again, minor point, but
That's funny. Well, the sky does look different. Like it's really bright and blue in page 2, and then let's see, and it does kind of look like it's maybe dusk now. It's kind of yellowy.
Yes,
the sun could be going down, so it could have just all this could have been taking place in 12 hours.
Because
even when they're rolling up the stairs, that silhouette there, that also kind of looks like a sun going down type of scene, because they're both rolling up to go up to the clock tower, and the light is shining from behind them. Yeah, so maybe that's the time lapse then.
Yeah, I took it that this issue happens in a day. The events of this issue happens in a day. But
this issue and last issue, or just this issue?
Well, yeah, yes, yeah, it would have to be last issue too, because Huntress left the senator. She's on her way back. I kind of got the sense that was really early in the morning, and so maybe what we are seeing with Dinah and Barbara is at the same time that that Huntress is with the no, because then that would make sense. That doesn't make sense because why would an Italian restaurant be open at 6:30 in the morning?
Okay, what time did you say? Okay, so I'm on the last panel of 60, and it looks like it's
Am I wrong?
one. Oh my gosh, I forgot how to do
you're on
analog
60.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the last panel when she fires Dinah.
Yeah, isn't it like 110 or something like that?
Yeah, the one is no, it's almost 2, I think, because
Okay.
the big hand is a little bit below the 1, and the little hand is a little bit past the 12. What time is that?
Yeah.
I can't think backwards.
Well, like I said, this it's just it's a minor incongruity that it bugs my brain, I guess.
No, I'm glad you brought it up because I did think about that, but in the last issue when I saw it behind Barbara, but I didn't go back to check. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's just the little things, and this was early in the morning because I know sometimes because my dad does a lot of bird watching, a lot of those birds go.
Mm-hmm.
He has to go super early in the morning to take pictures of them when they're trying to feed and stuff like that. So I could see them hunting early in the morning. So I think that's what I have.
What about the scene between Dinah, the sparring session between Dinah and Batgirl? So since you talked about being interested in Cassandra here,
let me go back to that.
this is on page 11 of issue 61.
Okay, so what was your question again?
Just your general reaction to Cassandra Cain, since you had mentioned her earlier.
Well, I mean, there wasn't too much because we just saw that one scene. And here her color is like orangey. I thought it was cool that she was fighting her in the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And she was still able to like dodge a bullet. So she kind of went back and she took her own advice and she said, "I wish I would have paid attention or watched Oracle when she fights in her chair."
Right.
So she did that. So she's kind of, I guess she's almost like Savant too then because she's mimicking too because she saw something before and she goes, "Oh, let me add this to my repertoire." Which is actually kind of smart because, you never know when this could happen again. Or if she's just tied down to a chair, being able to combat in different ways.
Yeah,
but
I think though the difference, of course, is that she makes the active choice. She recognizes the a deficiency in herself
mm-hmm.
and decides to do something about it. Whereas
Savant
no
one had to tell.
He's just very reactionary.
And this is the part we were saying about the eyes. I forgot about this.
And notice that panel where they have a close up of both of the characters' eyes. I thought that was a nice duality there, talking about the eyes and then showing them, and the way that Bendis and Lee show that, you get the sense that Batgirl has that look,
mm-hmm.
in the way that her eyes are shown, as opposed to Canary.
And that's where it kind of again plays back to the fact that she has like the morality that the other two, I guess, don't.
Yes, and that's the only thing that I think is wanting in this issue, is that we don't really get a satisfactory resolution to, not that we need a resolution, but just I guess a bit more about that in relation or between Dinah and Barbara especially. Now we do have a mending of the fences at the
mm-hmm.
end of the issue between the characters and a resolution to this whole storyline, generally speaking, but they don't really return to this whole idea of Dinah having to be, at least appear to be a killer fighter.
Mm-hmm. And we did see that with Huntress in when she first was introduced, and he goes, "I can't believe you killed me," even though she didn't really do anything to him. And then so to me, I was like, okay, so she's not. I mean, she didn't really do anything to him, but the fact that he was afraid that she would led me to believe that she probably would kill if she needed to. But then when she saved him, again, how we were saying there's two sides to her. And then he goes, "Oh, I can't believe you saved me." So it's like she'll do what she has to do if pushed to it.
Yeah.
Whereas, and so if it involves that she's going to kill somebody, then she's going to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that's what they were trying to kind of say in that scene, without her actually having to go out and kill somebody.
Yes.
Was that she could, if she wanted to, that she'll do it. But that scene that she didn't. Whereas we didn't see any indication that Dinah was going to kill anybody ever. I don't think, right?
Well, and out of everybody in this story, she has the most incentive to do so, mm-hmm. given what Savant put her through. Mm-hmm. I think as readers of the story, we may, depending on your sense of morality, we may even root for her to, if not seriously damage the guy, but actually, if she ended up killing him, because sometimes in these stories, the hero won't kill, but then the villain presents a situation where the hero has to kill them, right? We've seen that mm-hmm. a million times in mm-hmm. TV shows and movies and stuff. I would guess that, well, I'll just say, I wouldn't have minded if Canary actually had killed him in the event of this story, but that just shows what an immoral character I am.
Well, I did want her to pummel him, but
oh yeah, a
little bit more.
I wish exactly. I wanted more of a beatdown, more of a satisfactory beatdown on Savant by Canary, but there's the whole thing with the Senator's men that takes, again, this, I think, like the prison scene in the previous issue, just takes up a lot of page scenery mm-hmm. that I don't think it needed to. But
we didn't talk. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah. What is it?
No, we didn't talk about her cry.
I was just going to say
okay.
that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So to me, that that besides being a cool scene that Canary finally gets to use her superpower, I thought, this is a great way to show she's moved on. Physically she's repaired to the point where she can actually use her canary cry. But more subtly, this is, to me, it's she's not bogged down by that traumatic experience. And I like that. I like how that played out. Is that how you took it, or were you looking at something else in regards to that scene?
No, I just I like the fact that she wasn't going to let herself be just accept her circumstances. Like, oh, I'm stuck in this chair, I'm not going to do anything. She kept thinking of new ways. First we saw her training, and then she kind of did take that role that Barbara wanted her to have, because she's talking, and she's talking to Huntress over the intercom or whatever, over the lines, telling her what to do, even though Huntress isn't listening to her. So she kind of did take on that role anyways. And then, but at the same time, she's still wasn't going to be sidelined. She went down there. She goes, "Oh, I know where, I know where I'm going to, where to take you." And then she shows up and she uses her power that but all the whole rest of the, the whole previous parts of the story arc, she wasn't able to do that. So we could see that she doesn't necessarily even need her power to do anything.
Right. Here
it was just kind of like, oh, you know what? I can, this is going to be useful here. I'm going to do it, So, but the panels I thought looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about. So I was excited when it did it, because I wasn't expecting that. I don't know if you were, but I wasn't expecting, because I thought she called Barbara. So I thought she called Barbara and told her to meet her or something like that. So maybe I got confused, because then Barbara was down there. So I thought Barbara was going to do something at first. So mm-hmm. I totally wasn't expecting that, because I figured since she was up in the clock tower, it would take her too long, and Barbara was already out. So I guess I thought Barbara would, she was going to have Barbara do something. Like, she was going to, since the roles were already reversed, I thought she was kind of going to tell Barbara what to do, and Barbara or Oracle was going to do something, at the end. But instead she went down there, and then so she, she finished it off, and then Barbara was there kind of, had, I guess, I forgot what happened in that last scene when Barbara does show up. But it was funny because I was not expecting that. That whole scene, I was kind of seeing it as now Dinah's kind of being Oracle, and everybody else is going to have to do what she says. And then, but she was doing the job that Oracle wanted her to do.
I
so it
like
was like a lot of stuff went on.
I like that rewrite of the story. That, I think that would have been maybe a bit more satisfying. Yeah, that's one of the things the whole time frame of this particular issue, like you said, Dinah calls Oracle, I need you to be somewhere like right now. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages later, and not a lot of time apparently has passed in those 5 pages, but that's, Barbara shows up. So yeah, it's a weird timing issue, but whatever.
Yeah, that would have been pretty cool if that had happened, because then I think it would have completed that turnaround.
Yes.
Had it ended that way.
I agree. That would have been, I think, a bit more satisfying, but still, I like how we do get that. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a nice argument against what Barbara is saying in terms of Dinah, because, she's concerned about Dinah being injured. You should be here doing this. Well, Dinah shows, 1, she can do that if she needs to, and 2, she can still do what she has been doing. True. And when she's hurt. So
well, maybe that's why she called her then. She's like, I want her to see me still be in action, even though I have 2 broken legs and a messed up hand. Because then she beats that guy with the Shima sticks or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, this issue was just packed. I mentioned the thing about Savant getting out, but then Barbara turning it around on him. This is again where another scene where we see, he comes across as so confident and like he has all the power, and yet, one little phrase from Barbara, and he's pulling his collar up like he's scared, and he's suddenly very anxious and runs out of where he's at. I really like how Barbara turns the tables on him, not once but twice in this story.
It's funny.
And then we to bookend this story and also this issue, the issue started with them talking at the clock tower, definitely not being on the same page as each other, Dinah and Barbara. But at the end, same thing. They're on the roof of the clock tower talking, and not only are they now on the same page, and Huntress is now going to be part of the team. Barbara has accepted that, but Barbara turns. Here, I'll just read this last bit. Dinah says, referring to Huntress, she doesn't listen. She ignores. Because Dinah got a little bit of a taste of what Barbara did with Huntress in regards to Huntress in this issue. She doesn't listen. She ignores directions in the field. She's unpredictable, not to mention she's got a real temper problem. To which Barbara responds, Dinah, you've got to learn how to let the small stuff go. What a great way, usually throwing a friend's words back in their face is usually not a good thing to do. But in this case, given Dinah herself, I see her as someone who can easily take that and laugh about it even.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of getting all indignant about it. And it just shows how, even though the 2 characters have been at odds in some ways, they easily can work past that and still be friends. Not that they weren't, but still be friends and move on to the next thing. The mission continues, in other words.
Yeah, that was a pretty good ending. I mean, as far as being, like you said, as far as being like bookends.
I want to thank you again, because this was such a great read.
Yeah, I'm glad. I think I probably still wouldn't have read it had you not, broached the subject of coming onto the show. I probably would have still put it to the side, and it would have stayed in my wish list. Sometimes you need a little kick in the butt to myself too, to start something that you've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm glad, and I quite enjoyed it, and I guess it just made me realize too why it just really reinvigorated why I am a fan of Gail Simone's writing. I mean, I started reading Domino. I got behind on it, but it's just like I don't know. There's just something about the way that she writes things that really just hits me, and I just want to continue to read it. So it was kind of nice to go back and see that that's something that's kind of always been there, I guess.
Yeah.
Or that it's been there for a long time, and that she's been pretty consistent. So I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will admit though, she's written some comics that I just cannot get into, or did not get into.
Mm-hmm.
But she's written. I mentioned Secret Six, which is probably my favorite thing that she's done.
And I've heard that's really good too.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I highly recommend it. If you like what you read here in Birds of Prey, I think you will love Secret Six too.
Okay.
And I've not read Domino, but I've heard from other people that it's pretty really good. So I'll have to see about picking up a trade of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't read any of the Dynamite stuff, but that's just because I think a lot of what Dynamite puts out is just not my type of stuff. And then I haven't read, and I'm not really a fan of Deadpool. I don't mind if he's in a story, but I don't go out and read his stories. So stuff like that I probably would never read. But as far as when she does these teams or just writing some of the the female Bat people, I feel like she just really gets them, and since they're kind of already my favorite, and then I feel in the fact that I feel like she gets them, it's just for me, it's just like this nice little, I feel like, symbiotic relationship, because I could, I like those characters, I get them, and then I feel like she gets it, and then I just feel like, oh, it's a nice one, big happy story. I know it's kind of a silly way to put it, but that's just, I guess, how I feel about it.
I think that's a good way to put it. All right. Is there anything else you want to say about this particular story, or Gail Simone, or the other creators of the book?
Well, like I said, I wasn't familiar with Benes, so this is actually, I never even heard of him, to be honest, and I apologize. I don't know all of the artists, but I honestly, even though I haven't read, like, I hear a bunch of artists' name, and maybe sometimes I haven't read them in books, I honestly had never, this was an introduction for me to him. I am curious, though, because I've never looked into it. I'm curious, is Hi-Fi like a person, or is that a company? Or do you know any background on that? Because I've seen them on a lot of stuff, and I do like their coloring.
I think it's a company or a conglomerate of color artists.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I've assumed all these years. So I feel bad now that I haven't actually checked into that, because I do reference them a lot. Like you say, the Hi-Fi does a lot of colors for books, especially I think in this time period that we're talking about, 2003-ish. I remember seeing them listed on a lot of things around that time. I don't know if I'm sure they're still doing stuff now, but.
Mm-hmm. I think so, because I've seen it on a lot of recent stuff, but like every time I'm like, oh, I really like the colors on this, and I go back to to go relook, and I'm like, oh, it's them, but I just never go back and look at it. And also notice it says converted by Wildstorm. So this was this not a DC book then? Was Wildstorm part of DC before? Was that like a offshoot?
Wildstorm
or a sister?
So when Jim Lee. So Jim Lee at one point joined DC, and then is that right? And then Wildstorm was his thing, and so if I remember correct, I might be getting some of my.
I know, because I can't remember,
wrong. But I think Wildstorm had. Well, no, I won't say that. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. I don't remember. I
don't either.
Feel like I did before. I know what Wildstorm is, but I can't. I don't remember what the backstory is of it. Yeah, so I don't think I don't have anything more to say. I do think that they had more fun with the panels later on, where like the first couple issues probably were a little bit more strict, but then like you were saying, that we saw a lot more different shapes of panels, or layering of panels, and then the bubbles. So there's a lot of that stuff. I think that they started to, it feels like once they started maybe getting comfortable as they were doing the issues, having a little bit more fun with them, not being so, I guess, static. I saw it more in probably issue 3 and 4 than I did in 5 and 6, but it still was a little bit more fun on the last ones than it was like the first couple of them.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice to see, because I like seeing the different kinds of layers and different shapes, or whatever way that they put the layouts of the pages instead of always just being like a strict grid or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people, there's a few books on the stands nowadays that are using the Watchmen 9-panel grid a lot. And I guess it's a good way to tell a story. You put a lot of stuff on a page, but quite honestly, I'm not a big fan of it. I like variation on the page. And so, yeah, I really appreciate what they try to do with this. And like I said before...
No, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, because I think it makes for more dynamic pages, too, when you're able to do that.
Yeah. And I would imagine, I don't know, the artist would enjoy that more. I mean, you create art. What?
No, that's why I'm saying that, because even still, like, because sometimes that's not even necessarily just the artist. If you look in some of the books too, they have a graphic designer, and they're probably the ones that did the layout.
Okay.
So especially I think probably with a lot of the digital books, the ones that are probably only digital and not printed. But I think it just makes for a more interesting storytelling, and as you can see too, some of the panels where there was less panels and not even a full or splash scene, or what is it called? I know they're not necessarily a splash page, but when you have the single page, he was able to do more expressions that, like, remember you said like one of them looked kind of a little bit over the top, but you got it. Like, when he had more space to do stuff, they were really great panels. Yeah. Especially like the cover of number 58 with Babs and all that, and then some of the reaction shots of like Dinah. Those were in bigger panels, and I enjoyed those because he had more room, I think, because you can see the difference between when he's trying to crunch everything into a little panel to when he has more space to do something, and you can just you can really read the expressions of the character, and I think those really those stood out to me.
Yeah, reading this series of issues really has educated me on the skill of Mr. Bendis, because I kind of, like I said before, he in my mind before now, he's kind of this cheesecake superhero artist, and there's more to it than that. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but he definitely has craft, and I will look at his other work now with more open eyes, I guess.
Yeah, very, very cool. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Well, great. Again, thank you. This was so much fun. Reading this was great, but more importantly, getting to talk to you one-on-one. This has been awesome. Like I said before, we've interacted on Twitter back and forth over the years. I've been listening to your show for several years now, and I always enjoy it. Whenever I see a new episode, MJ, I'm like, oh yes, I get to listen to another one. I get to find out, what you've been up to in your life, but then also, I am usually exposed to a book I've never heard of. There was a couple episodes you had. This is about 10 or so episodes ago for you. You talked about The Martian before I even knew anything about that book. And then next thing I knew, there's the movie adaptation of it. You talked about Paper Towns in episode 38. So Martian was 36. Episode 38 was Paper Towns. And that's not a book that I would normally pick up. But after listening to you talk about it, I wanted to read it. And then next thing I knew, there was a movie. It's like whenever you talk about a book, it's like suddenly there's a movie. So, keep at it.
I know. And that's kind of the funny thing that's happened a few times is like, I just see a book that a lot of people are reading, and then I'm like, oh, that sounds good. And I put all these things on my wish list. And then all of a sudden I see it's a movie that's going to be a movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it got optioned as a movie. I better hurry up and read this. And that's what started it with what was it? Necromancer or Neuromancer?
Neuromancer. Yeah.
Yeah. And how episode 1 started was I had always wanted to read that book because I kept hearing it was so good. And then they said it was going to be a movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to hurry up and read it now because I don't want the movie, to be ruined. And so I did that. And I still haven't even made the movie. So, but I'm glad I got to read the book. So I got to experience, it in its original format. Yeah. But yeah, that's usually what happens. And so I'm forced to read the book right away. Because I like the books before the movies. I think one of the other podcasts I had done on a Dark Wood or something like that. That was one of the ones I did a couple of years ago, and Reese Witherspoon, she had put I think she had done like a little blurb or whatever. She had read it in a book club or something like that. And I'm not sure if she was going to be in the movie, but after I read it, I saw that it got optioned to be a movie, but I had read it first, and I was like, oh my gosh, another one. I was like, well, good thing I read it first, but this one I read before they ever optioned it as a movie. So I wasn't, I didn't feel like forced to go ahead and read it ahead of time. But I should have known, it's like, oh, I should have known this was going to be a movie. And it was a good book, and I hope they do make it into a movie. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah. And I got stuff queued up, and I have my notes for stuff. I just have to sit down and do it. It's just the editing process.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it.
So, but hopefully soon.
Good.
That's my plan.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you have, sometimes there's a lot of time in between your episodes, but what you bring, what you provide to us, the listeners, I think is a really cool thing and educational and I just really enjoy your take on books and just the little things like the jokes you mentioned before, how you just kind of throw in these little things to make it interesting and enjoyable. So I really appreciate what you do through Nerd Goggles and your Twitter feed. So
thank you.
Speaking of those things, why don't you tell the folks where they can find Nerd Goggles and where to follow you online and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, so it's the podcast is Nerd Goggles Podcast, and there's a website which is nerdgogglespodcast.blogspot.com. I still don't know why I haven't gotten a proper domain name, but I just Google seems to be getting rid of all of their things, and I don't know what I'm going to do if they decide to get rid of Blogger. Ooh, yeah. I know I'm keeping that in the back of my mind. I might have to start, migrating something, or I use who hosts my site? I use Libsyn, and they do give you kind of like a website. So if it comes down to it, I'll just just only use that. But then my Twitter is MJ_Starchild with an E on the end, and it's not, as some people think, it has nothing to do with Kiss. It actually is an X-Men character, Rachel Summers. So just in case anybody wanted to know, I'm keeping it in the comics world, guys. So that's where you can find me.
All right, and I'll provide links to all that in the show notes as well. So in case people want easy access to that. So MJ, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you coming on and talking. We talked a lot about the comics, but we also chatted for a long time before we started recording. And so I know I've taken up a lot of your day. I apologize about that.
No, thank you. I was nervous because it's been a while, so it helped ease my nerves.
And it was a great conversation from my standpoint. So I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
So anyway, everyone, thanks for listening. And if you have comments about this episode or about the story that Birds of Prey, the issues that MJ and I just talked about, you can always leave comments at the blog, longboxreview.com. You can always email me, longboxreview@gmail.com, and I'm always on Twitter @longboxreview. And with that, I will leave everybody alone with their thoughts and their comics and whatever else. And thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, MJ.
Thank you.
And I will talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.